3 reasons why you should punch someone first. It's a grey area, punching someone first. There's always a problem that if you hit someone first, you're going to escalate the situation. But quite frankly, there will be times when it's necessary to go first. Self-defense is a risk game. Yes, you can allow the person to punch you first, but you are risking them landing that punch in the first place. And if they do land it and you fall and hit your head on the concrete, that's taking a risk with your own life. The problem is knowing when to go first and also being able to justify it legally. Now, from a legal consequence, there is a difference between assault and battery. Assault is where you feel a credible threat against you, an imminent threat against you. Battery is where they physically carry out that threat. So in other words, where they actually land a punch, strike you, or harm you in some physical way. So you could say assault is the intention and battery is the act. Now, in most legal jurisdictions around the world, it is perfectly reasonable and sound to defend yourself if you feel you're being assaulted. Of course, it comes with a caveat. That is, your response has to be proportional to the threat that you're dealing with. In other words, it shouldn't be excessive. In my Anatomy of Violence workshop that I'll be running in New York this year, you'll get a further insight in what to do and how to deal with this situation. So the first reason to punch first are those pre-attack indicators. The physical posture of the person combined with what they're saying and how they're behaving. The guy's got a balled up fist. He's staring at you. He's got a leg forward and he's poised ready to swing hard and fast. That's a fair indicator with live verbal threats that there's a huge risk to your health and you need to do something about it. Now you need to take action, and action doesn't necessarily mean hitting the person. It could quite frankly mean removing yourself from that situation. Under most self-defense laws, if you can't indicate that you took every precautionary step to avoid the confrontation before you hit the person, there's a good chance that you'll be actually charged with an offence. And of course, there's always other behavioural indicators. Guys looking down, looking away, misdirection even. Number 2, he's testing your boundaries. Quite often, subconsciously, people move in and out of your personal space. They'll test your boundaries. And in doing that, they'll step forward, they'll move back, they'll appear quite agitated. And this is a high likelihood, a big indicator that an imminent attack could be coming in. Another behavior that goes along with that is that when someone becomes quite agitated and then they suddenly become calm. It's that saying, calm before the storm. They're moving around and all of a sudden they slow down and it's almost as if they've changed their mind. That's a high indicator that something's coming in hard and fast. Because at that point, this bad guy's made his decision. And again, you need to take action. And that could be leaving the scene, retreating from the scene. Or if you stand your ground, then you have to take action for your own personal self-defense. Now, some people talk about eye flickers. The eyes moving one way and the eyes going the other way. I'm telling you, in a confrontation, the one thing that the guy's going to do is to stare at you with blind rage. And they're not going to roll their eyeballs up to the left or the right to engage this cognitive function that most self-defense experts like to mention. That just doesn't happen like that. You're going to be locked into a killer gaze. And under that circumstances, the last thing you're going to notice is this eye flicker. That's just something you should ignore, and it is certainly unreliable. So the third thing, he who goes first wins. And that is basically down to reactions. Because at the end of the day, whoever pulls that trigger is likely to land. And that's the thing. Action is faster than reaction. If you think about it, to block a punch, you have to see that punch and then you have to react to that punch. And that's always going to be a split second behind. So fundamentally, it's always easier to go forward first rather than to react, watch, and then decide what you're going to do. Now, yes, I know there's a lot of highly skilled fighters out there, but you still have to see the punch in the first place. And for some people, especially the less skilled, that's much more of a challenge. At the end of the day, force disparity is an issue for a reason. And it's one thing you don't want to take chances with. So why let someone punch you first? Because they throw a punch, you've got to see it, then you've got to decide what you're going to do. And all of that takes a split second. And in most cases, this is far too long. So what I'm advocating is that you learn to recognize the signs of attack. Learn when to pull that trigger. It's not simply a case of hit the guy for the sake of it, but you need to know when to hit them, what to look out for. But you're looking not for just one single sign, you're looking for a collective group of actions, behaviors that co-occur together. So where should you punch? Well, this is always a tough one. You can hunt and hope and hit for the head. The problem is if you land incorrectly, you're going to cripple your hands, and you've already engaged a confrontation. You've already taken the fight to the bad guy. And of course it's going to escalate. And if there weren't weapons involved at that point, there will be now. Worst case scenario, if it's an open environment, anything's available to hand that could be used against you. So at this point in time, you have to take a critical judgment on where you strike. And of course, you have to bear legal consequences to that because it has to be proportional to the threat. That means you can't go crazy on the guy because some guy on YouTube said it was all right to do. There has to be a reasonable response. I always say hit soft targets with hard weapons. Hard weapons, obviously your knuckles, but it can be the edges of your hands, elbows, even your head. But whatever it is, it has to be a soft target. Throat, nose, ideal places to strike, solar plexus, liver, anywhere that's relatively soft to strike with a hard weapon is going to be much more effective than just throwing a punch, hunting and hoping at the end of the day that you're going to survive it without it escalating, because that's not going to happen. Because if you get this wrong, your confrontation is going to escalate tenfold. That takes me to my final point. You have to be mentally prepared to escalate a situation for your own safety. And if you're not, then you are always far better off trying to negotiate your way out of violence. Try to appease and try to de-escalate the situation. Do as much as you can to avoid it. That said, some predators are energized by the sign of weakness. And what that will do with some people, further antagonize the situation in their eyes. And sometimes it's about the complete package. You have to display strong, intent body language. Because without that, the threat of you fighting back has no substance in a predator's eyes. So what's the takeaway? You can hit first, but there are a lot of legal, ethical, and moral considerations to take on board. It's not an easy decision to make, but at the end of the day, you risk your own life if you allow someone to hit you first and you get it wrong. There are a lot of complex variables that you have to take into account. Your age versus your attacker's age. The environment is another factor. Lighting, location, objects around you that may affect your personal safety. Maybe someone's picking a fight on you in a minefield, for example. Crazy as it sounds. Even your ability to retreat is a variable that you have to consider when punching someone first. If you can't retreat and you are in clear and imminent danger, then under any self-defense jurisdiction, well, try saying that a few times after a few drinks, you are provided the ability to defend yourself. So in some cases, it may be legally justifiable to punch first when there's a clear and imminent danger. There's no means to escape, and there's previous aggressive actions. And don't forget the disparity of force. And that's a critical factor as well to consider, because you may have a difference in age, size, and ability. And these are all factors that you have to take into account when defending yourself. Because sometimes they may not punch, they may just draw a knife and stab you instead. If you don't take control of the situation, other people will. And then you're always going to be reacting on the back foot. So you have to be proactive in your own self-defense. You either have to de-escalate the situation, withdraw from the situation, or take physical control of the situation. And some of this may involve your own body language, it may involve the way that you speak, it may involve your positioning, and all of these are factors that I will discuss in future videos. But more importantly, when I do my Anatomy of Violence workshop in New York, come see me, I'll go through in more detail how and what you should do. Thanks for watching.